school so early. What are you doing? Just chilling on the couch? Yeah? I feel it. Yeah, I had a good day at work. Short and sweet. It's good to be back home. What have you done today? Just kind of relaxed? Are you okay? Oh, why hasn't today been good? Just one of those days, huh? Listen, I don't have anywhere else to be now that I'm home from work, so if you like, we could just have some good old sibling time. Yeah? Okay. Let me go put my coat up, and I'll be right back. Okay? So, tell me, why hasn't today been your day? Just feeling a little bit under the weather? I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I know. I have days like that too sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes it's the weather that sets me off. I guess it could be the rain. Yeah? Sometimes it's the weather, or I just wake up and I feel a little sad. Did you wake up and just feel a little off? Yeah? That's okay. Well, sometimes I feel like we have days that are a little bit cloudier and sadder. Sadder? No word. I don't know. I'm your big sister yet. I always struggle with my words still. Anyways, sometimes we have days that are a little bit harder so that we appreciate the good days, Yeah. Well, what have you been doing? Just on your phone? YouTube? Yeah. Oh, I feel that. I've spent many an hour on YouTube. What kind of videos do you watch? Oh yeah, that's interesting. Well, if you want to take a break from your phone, I could read you a book or something like that. Would you like that? Okay, well, I am a little thirsty, so I was gonna make some tea. Would you like anything? Okay, and then I'll read you whatever book you want. Okay. Alright. No, it's no problem. What kind of tea do you prefer? Chamomile, Earl Grey, green? Okay, alright. I'll be back with that in a moment. You just sit here and relax, and we'll cheer you up, okay? Alright. Here you go. I just put my tea over there. Would you like some honey in it? Okay. It's a little bit hot, so I don't know, you might have to. Oh, it smells good though. Alright. This is just the Kroger brand. I really like Kroger. Kroger has some really good prices, and honey is honey, right? Okay. Put this in your tea. Is that enough? Okay. Perfect. Would you like some? Just put it right here next to you. So now we can both have our tea, and I just thought of, those candles, crackle flavor. I'm pretty sure Mom still has some of those. So see if I can buy one of those candles, and then we can pretend that we're by the fire. Okay. I found one. This one is one of my favorite. Woodwick. Yep, it crackles as it burns, and it's at the beach. I love this. Oh, and it's such a big candle, too. Oh, smell this. That's so nice. Oh, yeah, this is gonna be great. Okay, I need a light. Okay. This better be as epic as I remember crackling candles to be. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's such a big flame too. Brings back memories of childhood. Sitting by the fire, roasting marshmallows. Can you hear it? Yeah. That's nice, okay. I'm just gonna put it right next to us so we can listen to it. Right. Okay. Another sip of my tea. So what book would you like me to read? Yeah? Okay. Which one? Okay. I will go get that one. Alright. I know I love the Harry Potter books so much. So we're gonna start. I love the illustrations too. Let's see who illustrated it. Do you know? No. It's right here. For some reason I've never checked. But it says illustrations by Mary Grandpré. I guess that's how you say your name. Yeah. Alright. Do you want to start at the beginning? Well, see, I never know. Some people like to start at the end of books. Some people like to start in the middle. Especially when you've read the book before, you know? But we will start at the beginning. Okay. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Lived. I'm gonna apologize in advance because I can't do accents like Mom always did, so you're just gonna have to settle with that. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion, there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret, and their greatest fear was that someone would discover it. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about Mrs. Potter was Mrs. Dursley's sister. They hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as un-Dursleyish as it was possible to be. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son, too, but they had never seen him. This boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dudley mixing with a child like that. They're so extra. When Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull gray Tuesday our story starts, there was nothing about the cloudy sky to suggest that strange and mysterious things would soon be happening all over the country. Mr. Dursley hummed as he picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mrs. Dursley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his high chair. None of them noticed a large, tawny owl flutter past the window. At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the wall. "Little tyke," chortled Mr. Dursley as he left the house. He got into his car and backed out of number 4's drive. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something peculiar. A cat reading a map. For a second, Mr. Dursley didn't realize what he had seen. Then he jerked his head around to look again. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Privet Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. What could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of the light. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. You know, that actually kind of sounds like a cat purring now that I think about it. That's nice. Hold on, let me get situated. Are you comfortable? Okay, good. Let's see, where was I? Okay. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. It stared back. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the sign that said Privet Drive. No, looking at the sign. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. As he drove toward town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills he was hoping to get that day. But on the edge of town, drills were driven out of his mind by something else. As he sat in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldn't help noticing that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in clothes. Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. The get-ups you saw in young people. He supposed this was some stupid new fashion. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, and his eyes fell on a huddle of these weirdos standing quite close by. They were whispering excitedly together. Mr. Dursley was enraged to see that a couple of them weren't young at all. Why, that man had to be older than he was, and he was wearing an emerald green cloak. The nerve of him. But then it struck Mr. Dursley that this was probably some silly stunt. These people were obviously collecting for something. Yes, that would be it. The traffic moved on, and a few minutes later, Mr. Dursley arrived in the Grunnings parking lot, his mind back on drills. Mr. Dursley always sat with his back to the window in his office on the 9th floor. But if he hadn't, he might have found it harder to concentrate on drills that morning. He didn't see the owls swooping past in broad daylight, though people down on the street did. They pointed and gazed open-mouthed as owl after owl sped overhead. Most of them had never seen an owl, even at nighttime. Mr. Dursley, however, had a perfectly normal, owl-free morning. He yelled at 5 different people, he made several important telephone calls, and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good mood, until lunchtime, when he thought he'd stretch his legs and walk across the road to buy himself a bun from the bakery. He'd forgotten all about the people in cloaks until he passed a group of them next to the baker's. He eyed them angrily as he passed. He didn't know why, but they made him uneasy. this bunch were whispering excitedly, too, and he couldn't see a single collecting tin. He was on his way back past them, clutching a large donut in a bag. That sounds good. That he caught a few words of what they were saying. The Potters. That's right, that's what I heard. Yes, their son Harry. Mr. Dursley stopped dead. Fear flooded through him. He looked back at the whisperers as if he wanted to say something to them, but thought better of it. He dashed back across the road, hurried up to his office, snapped at his secretary, seized his telephone, and had almost finished dialing his home number when he changed his mind. He put the receiver back down and stroked his mustache, thinking, no, he was being stupid. Potter wasn't such an unusual name. He was sure there were lots of people called Potter who had a son named Harry. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure his nephew was called Harry. He'd never even seen the boy. It might have been Harvey or Harold. There was no point in worrying Mrs. Dursley. She always got so upset at any mention of her sister. He didn't blame her if he'd had a sister like that. But all the same, those people in cloaks. He found it a lot harder to concentrate on drills that afternoon, and when he left the building at 5 o'clock, he was still so worried that he walked straight into someone just outside the door. Sorry, he grunted as the tiny old man stumbled and almost fell. It was a few seconds before Mr. Dursley realized that the man was wearing a violet cloak, and he didn't seem at all upset at being almost knocked to the ground. On the contrary, his face split into a wide smile, and he said in a squeaky voice that made passerby stare, "Don't be sorry, sir, my dear sir, for nothing could upset me today. Rejoice, for you know who has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy, happy day." And the old man hugged Mr. Dursley around the middle and walked off. Mr. Dursley stood rooted to the spot. He had been hugged by a complete stranger. He also thought he had been called a muggle, whatever that was. He was rattled. He hurried to his car and set off for home, hoping he was imagining things, which he had never hoped before, because he didn't approve of imagination. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was the tabby he had spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one, because it had the same markings around its eyes. "Shoo," said Mr. Dursley. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a stern look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered. Trying to pull himself together, he let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had had a nice, normal day. She told him over dinner all about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word, won't. Mr. Dursley tried to act normally. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. And finally, bird watchers everywhere have reported that the nation's owls have been behaving very unusually today. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newscaster allowed himself a grin. Most mysterious. And now over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Well, Ted, said the weatherman, I don't know about that. But it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly today. Viewers as far apart as Kent, Yorkshire, and Dundee have been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain I promised yesterday, they've had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire night early. It's not until next week, folks. But I can promise a wet night tonight. Kind of like what we're having right now. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain. Owls flying by daylight. Mysterious people in cloaks all over the place. And a whisper. A whisper about the Potters. Oh, this book is so good. Do you want any more tea? Are you getting a little bit sleepy? I see your eyes kind of getting a little heavy. I don't have to keep reading if you prefer to take a nap. Okay, you can just talk. So, what are you most excited for about the new year? Yeah? That's exciting. I don't know about me. I think I'm just really excited to spend time with friends and family. That includes you, of course. I love y'all, and yeah, I'm just excited to be able to spend more time with all the people I really care about this year and make fun and friendship and fellowship like a bigger priority, I think. It's so crazy. 2018 flew by for me. How about you? Yeah, it's crazy. What do you think your highlight of this past year has been? I know, it's so hard to choose. I agree. So much happened this year, so it's really hard to pick one. But, you know, I guess that's just a good reminder how blessed we are to live a life where we're so fortunate to spend time with people we love, and for it to be difficult to pick a highlight of the year, you know, for there to be so many good times with family and friends. It's a really special thing to have. And I'm just glad that, you know, we're all here as a family and I can spend time with y'all. It's been a good year. Do you feel cheered up at all? Did I help? Good, I'm glad. You know, I totally understand. Some days are just a little off, you know? I don't know what it is, but Harry Potter and lighting a candle, drinking a cup of tea, those are sure ways to cheer me up, so I'm glad they helped you too. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And now we can just relax for the weekend and enjoy time together as a family. You're getting a little tired? I'm getting a little tired too, honestly. I'm gonna go upstairs and take a little nap. Think you're gonna take a nap here on the couch? Yeah? Sounds like a good idea. Well, if you're gonna drift off to sleep, I think I'm gonna go take a nap as well. But yeah, I'll leave the book with you, and if we want to come back to it later, I'm definitely down for that. Okay. Alright, well, enjoy your nap. I'll see you in a couple hours. I love you too. Would you like me to leave the candle on for you as well? Yeah? Okay. Alright. See you in a bit.